Today I'll be taking you through the removal of an oil pump on a 1978 Honda Express NC50 moped. The first step what you want to do is, I'm just going to take out this is where the gasoline would go, and two different chambers here. This is the oil as it's labeled, obviously, and I'm just going to pop this off. You can see that there's an oil line that comes down here. Not to be confused with the gas line. There's a petcock, and the gas line goes right into the carburetor. So the fuel line will come down, and it goes into your oil pump, and there's a smaller line that comes out, which also goes into kind of the intake there in the engine. Okay, so you have two lines. You have the oil line coming down. It's the bigger of the two. It goes into the oil pump, and then you have the smaller line, which comes up and goes right into the intake and mixes with the air and gasoline and fires off the engine. So basically what this is, it's simply, there's some cogs inside, and what it does is as the engine turns, it revolves the spindle and produces the right amount or quantity of oil to be then taken into the engine, mixed with the fuel and burning and keeping the cylinder lubricated and what have you. So it kind of does the work. I've heard of people who actually have bypassed this, and what they actually do is mix their fuel directly in, mix their oil and their fuel together and run it that way. I don't recommend that. It's not done stock like that, so I was just going to try to stick to the way the manufacturer had made it. Obviously you want to set up a pan underneath when you're doing this. So after I loosen the cap, what I want to do is some kind of glass container. As you can see here, I have an old candle jar, and you're going to kind of pull out this line, plug it up with your finger, stick it in there, and let gravity do the rest. Also check my website, HondaExpressMoped.com, for the right types of oil to use. Synthetics oils are supposed to be the best, and it's really, everybody has their own opinion, but predominantly I've heard synthetic is the best. I'm going to take out the screw here, which is a clamp, and this is keeping the oil pump down. So you're going to take that out, and that loosens up, and you kind of spread it apart with your hands, and then you're just going to carefully lift up, not out. You're going to lift kind of directly up, because there's a kind of a rod in here with cogs on it, teeth. So wires too, you got to be careful of, but it will come out. You don't need to remove the engine from the frame to do this, which is nice about these models. Okay, just be very careful taking it out here. Okay, so now we can see the teeth on here, and that actually sits down inside, and as the engine turns, it turns this, spins like this, which inside I'll show you the components in this container here, what's going on there. But you're going to take this whole unit out, and I'll show you the pieces. So while you're away from your bike, if you leave it overnight or what have you, try to just take a clean rag, stuff it in there just so there's no debris or bugs. Okay, so now I've got the oil pump off, and at this point this should actually be able to kind of pull right out, and you see it's got teeth on here as well. So the revolution is going to turn this, which turns the teeth on the top half. And as I mentioned before, I've already cleaned this, so yours might be a lot more dirty. Just be careful not to break any seals like in here or anything like that, and also check for cracked seals because they might need to be replaced. So what I'm going to do is open this up and show you what it looks like in here. I actually had to use some liquid wrench that you can pick up in a auto parts store to kind of release these, and I had to use kind of like a vice pliers lead screw for the oil pump, and that's really what you're going to use that later on. In the manual it shows like there's another port which you can drain off the oil with and stuff, and it's not in this model. I don't know why. I'm going to disassemble this and show you what it looks like inside. Okay, so I've removed this kind of back panel here, and you can see inside we got a bunch of different moving parts. So just gently pull this out, and we have a spring on a spindle here, and make sure you do this where you're not going to lose them or kind of get the parts dirty. We have a seal here, a rubber seal, And I didn't show this, I already taken this off, but this seal actually goes up and fits in there. But I have it off for cleaning right now, and that helps, keep debris from getting down into the engine. So you can actually see, so there's a little cog inside here. If I was to kind of put this back in place, when it spins, it actually slowly, the cog inside makes revolutions. And I'm not an engineer, but I understand the basic concept of what it's doing is it's moving around, creating suction, and pushing out the right amount of oil, but beyond that, I'm pretty dumb. So, I'm going to remove that cog, as you can see here, and it does go in a certain way. You have to pay attention to how you bring it out. It's wider on the base. This opening is wider on the base than the top. So, and you can see, I don't believe it should go in, and you definitely don't want to force any of these components, otherwise you break it and you're screwed. So there's a center spot here which spins, and don't try to remove that. It doesn't come out, and if it does, I don't know how you get it back in. But what you want to do is just get some carb cleaner or degreaser, and you're going to spray in there all the nooks and crannies, and maybe a wire brush for the aluminum on the outside. Don't score any of these pieces or harm them in any way. But you want to get out the debris and what have you. When we reassemble this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of the 2-cycle synthetic engine oil that I have and just kind of coat all these little pieces as I put them back together. They will be coated as soon as the oil is hooked back up. I have a container so I can, as I put these pieces together, I just dropped a seal. Not good? Okay. As I put this back together, I'm going to be putting oil on it. Again, this is 2-cycle. I just happen to have a syringe where I can suck up the leftover oil, which it's clean, it's good, and apply it to the different components as I put it. I just wanted to show you, this is a nice illustration of how it's functioning inside. The pump drive gear, turning the gear, which then again turns the cam gear. Inside, utilizing the plunger and all the happy jazz. What it's telling to do is to prevent gears from wearing. Grease is packed between the drive shaft and the outer pipe. So here's the gear, here's the drive shaft, outer pipe. So basically we want to grease this up when we put it back in. Very important to note. I just wanted to show you, I took some kind of multi-purpose grease, high temperature, and coated the gear up here. Didn't go in between the seal because the 2-cycle oil will be all in there and should take care of the gears in there. But outside of the seal here and the whole shaft and the end and everything in, I had a screw, and this little clamp here is really nice that it comes set with. Ratcheted that down. You're going to make sure it gets put in the right way because there's a notch in the clamp and there's kind of a part that juts out here, and it fits right into that notch. So it kind of places it for you in the right direction, keeps it from spinning around, which is really good. What I'm going to do is, plug this back in and plug that section back in. I don't have the oil that I want to replace. I want to go all synthetic. Check my website again for the type of synthetics I'm going to try and see how that experiment goes, but it's a AMS oil, and it should be good. So once I do that, though, I'll plug these two back in, these tubes, and then I'm going to pour in the top, in the reservoir, my oil, and I'll use this kind of bleed screw, and I'll release this, and what it's actually going to do is the oil is going to come down, gravity fed, it's going to fill up the inside of the gears and components and everything, and start spilling out here, and that's what I want. I want to get all the air bubbles because we don't want to send any air bubbles to the engine because, clog it up, and it could, obviously, it would be running without oil if it was just sending air instead.